When I was first asked to speak about the subject of icons and mavericks and geniuses, I thought to myself, well, what exactly do those words mean, and who can those words apply to? And that second question is actually relatively easy to answer. So when I thought about the word icon, a couple of figures, people immediately came to mind. People like Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi, people who have done great things and inspire the mass of humanity to do them as well. Great and good things. When I think of genius, of course, it's Albert Einstein or maybe a Nikola Tesla. When I thought about maverick, this is what came up. Don't know why. Don't know why. But then there are people who embody all three of those words, like Steve Jobs, right? An icon, a genius, a maverick. Then I thought, what common characteristics, right, do these people share? They're well known. They're very admired and revered generally. They're inspirational. They are or have done uniquely positive things. And in many cases, what they've done and what they represent are tested by time. And then the irony hit me, right? And the irony was that the people I selected for myself as icons, geniuses, and mavericks, right? And the definition that I'm using is so completely conventional. When these people are icons, mavericks, and geniuses because they're anything but conventional. What I'd like to do is I'd like to at least challenge one aspect, right? The public fame and acknowledgement aspect of being an icon, a genius, or a maverick by sharing with all of you guys not the story of my fights with patent trolls, which have been documented fairly extensively, but a story that hasn't been shared publicly, as far as I know, in mass media. It's the story of the founder and CEO of Newegg, Fred Cheng. And I don't think anybody in this room is likely to have heard who the founder and CEO of the second largest internet retailer in the United States is. And I'd like to share with you his background and his philosophy and why ultimately I consider him an icon and a maverick and a genius. So Fred was born in Taiwan in a very small rural town in central Taiwan, and he was educated as a computer scientist before emigrating to the United States. Didn't have a lot of money, as many immigrants don't. And in the 80s and 90s, he started a couple of very small computer companies. Not bad, nothing to really write home about, nothing that became prominent. And then in the year 2000, as that first wave of internet companies, e-commerce companies, as they were imploding, as that Dutch tulip craze boom in the mid to late 90s basically blew up and literally hundreds of companies went bankrupt, Fred decided to take the very, very last of his savings to start an internet company. And not just any internet company. This is the type of internet company, and he had the kind of business plan that would have gotten him laughed out of Silicon Valley. So he didn't go to Silicon Valley, didn't raise a dime of venture capital, took the very, very last of his savings, and he went off, and in the corner of a dingy little warehouse, because the proverbial garage was just too expensive for him, he started Newegg.com. And the corporate origins of Newegg actually give rise to another interesting story. We have a house brand called Roseville. And we'd like to tell people that the choice of name was an inspired choice after doing a lot of marketing surveys and doing careful analysis of what our customers would respond to. But the reality is that the first warehouse that Newegg was founded in, which we still have, it's just hold on to your seats, it's called Warehouse 1. That first warehouse was down the street from the Rose Hill Cemetery. So there you have it. So Roseville was founded by Fred with a business plan that was very, very unconventional. Fred didn't want to just boast about publicly how we were going to disaggregate supply chains and how we were going to change the world. He very, very quietly went off And he got that dingy warehouse, he stocked it full of inventory, and he built a customer service call center there that we've never even contemplated moving offshore or outsourcing, because he wanted to do something that nobody was doing at the time, which was not focus on slick marketing, not focus on buying Super Bowl ads and stadium naming rights or billboards, but instead to focus on something called customer service, right? And we were the first company very quietly to really do that in the online world. And for many years, nobody except people with great big thick horn-rimmed glasses, would buy from or had heard about Newegg, but they were great customers. And in 4 years, which I think is still a record in American corporate history, Fred and the founding team of Newegg built Newegg into a billion-dollar company. And today, we're second only behind Amazon.com in the e-commerce world. So you would think with a success story like this, that the visionary behind Newegg.com would be lionized by the media. He'd be a household name, right? But far from that. So why is Fred Cheng the e-commerce world's equivalent of Waldo? Well, I've been at Newegg now almost 9 years, and I've worn a number of hats. Some of those hats in the past have involved trying to get some PR for the company and so on. And each time that I asked Fred to speak to the media or to even allow himself to be nominated for some well-deserved awards, he would decline. In fact, if you were to go do a Google search for Fred Cheng, Newegg, right now, this is what would turn up. So I know many people think that Asians all look alike, but this is not Fred Cheng. I wish this was Fred Cheng. Then I wouldn't be standing here right now. I think Fred Cheng sometimes wants to be this guy. And Jeff Bezos is our company's primary rival, and that is also not Fred Cheng. So the only remotely accurate picture of Fred Cheng is this tiny little, almost caricature. Where someone must have snapped this fuzzy camera pic of Fred and posted it somewhere on the internet, and it makes Fred kind of look like one of those Khmer Rouge cadres being tried for genocide. But that's not really Fred Cheng either. So I actually asked Fred, I pressed him a couple of years ago when the Wall Street Journal wanted to do a profile. They offered to do a profile of Newegg. It would have been great, right before holiday season, wonderful. But they wanted to tie it to a human interest story, to the story of a person. And they insisted on interviewing him, and he declined again. And I said, why, Fred? Why? So much, Fred, free publicity. And he said, just smiled at me, and he said, well, because Newegg is about much more than me. Because the success of Newegg is very much a team effort. And I want Newegg to be far more than me. And how many times have we all heard people say this as they're basking in public glory and adulation? But in Fred's case, he really meant it. You still can't find a good picture of him online. And based on his own words, then the very best picture of Fred Cheng is the one that's in front of you right now. That's Fred Cheng, as far as he's concerned. I've applied the lessons that Fred has taught me privately in my own practice at Newegg. So my official title at Newegg is Chief Legal Officer, and for about 9 years now, we've been unfortunately engaged in what I call the troll wars, the patent troll wars. And to those of you not familiar with what it is, it's basically a bunch of people, they're typically ex-lawyers who have identified a loophole in our legal system that allows people who hold patents, often patents that should never have been granted in the first place, to sue people, sue individuals, sue small companies, sue large companies, and hold them up because of deficiencies in our legal system for sometimes millions and millions of dollars. The cost of defending these suits is so high that almost everybody is forced to settle. It's absolutely crippling to small businesses. It is taking billions of dollars a year out of R&D budgets, out of the ability to, out of companies' ability to hire more staff and to really build businesses that serve their end user customers. And just about everybody was just cutting the check because the average cost of defense for these lawsuits is somewhere between $2 and $6 million. Because of what Fred stood for and what he taught me, we designed a very aggressive, cost-effective legal strategy to fight back. We didn't settle our suits. These suits involved patents, for example, on common functionalities like the online shopping cart, drop-down menus, and search boxes. So imagine that. So there are people who claim that every single time that someone uses some of these very obvious commonplace functionalities, that they get essentially to collect a private tax. And by fighting back, we've been able to put a number of trolls out of business. We've been able to invalidate every patent that we've taken to trial, which shows how crappy they are. And now people don't sue us anymore. I'm very glad that I followed Fred's lesson. So why do I think, again, that Fred should be considered an icon, a genius, and a maverick? He's definitely a maverick, I think, fairly said. He is willing and able to take risks and do what other people aren't willing to do. I think some people would consider him a genius, not everybody. But if he's not an icon, I think it's largely because he doesn't want to be an icon. But why do I think that he should be considered one? Because he is always looking to do what is uniquely positive. And he always wants to leave conventional thinking and conventional action to conventional people. So Fred's story suggests very strongly to me then that you don't have to achieve public adulation, acknowledgement, and fame for your actions in order to have a fruitful career and a very good life, a life well lived. I hope it illustrates to all of you as well that doing the right thing has its own reward, and that geniuses and icons and mavericks can be all around us, and it could even be the person sitting next to you right now. But, I would strongly also advocate that all of you not just admire these people, try to go and be one of them. Thank you.